Greetings from Houston, Texas, guys. Mike coming at you from AT Astro Area of Truth Aspect and Relationship Astrology. And today we're going to be going over a particular aspect pattern that gets talked about pretty frequently, but many people have a relatively shallow understanding of what it means. We're going over the yod. I love yods. Okay, so a yod is a particular aspect pattern that you will find in an astrological chart. It can be in any chart. You can find them in birth charts, of course, progress charts, composite charts. You can find them in solar or lunar returns. Any chart where a yod pops up, it's going to indicate something significant. This is from my experience. So a yod aspect pattern forms when there are three planets that are forming a perfect isosceles triangle within the chart. And it doesn't necessarily have to be three planets. Many people they have these rules that they use for yods, like the two planets at the bottom have to be the slower moving planets. The apex planet has to be the fastest moving planet, and it can't involve angles or asteroids. I don't agree with any of that, because I feel like if you can draw an aspect from a planet to an angle, then you can use that in a yod. I mean, it's still all energies, and think like angles, the cusps of the first, fourth, seventh, and 10th house. I mean, they're still very, very sensitive points within a person's personality. So, why the fuck can't you use them in a yod? Also, I wouldn't use the smaller asteroids like Nessus or Valentine or anything like that. I wouldn't use those, and I wouldn't count those as part of a yod aspect pattern. But the more major asteroids, let's say Lilith, Chiron, even the North Node. Those are definitely something I would take into account. So, in a yod aspect pattern, you're going to see two planets at the base forming a sextile to each other, which basically puts the energies of those two planets in harmony. It's not like an overwhelming exchange of energy between the two like a trine, but it's still enough for the energies to be interacting in a fairly harmonious way. And then you see one planet at the top, the apex planet, making a 150-degree angle on both sides, so two inconjunct aspects to the respective planets at the bottom. So it forms an isosceles triangle. And what basically happens is the two planets at the bottom are linked up and supported by each other, and then they're then focusing the energy of those two planets onto one singular planet in the chart like a laser beam. And the yod is, it's a Hebrew word that means God or fate or destiny, and that's what the yod is. It's called the finger of God or the finger of destiny, and it represents internal or external forces. I mean, it can manifest in various different ways, pushing the individual towards reaching some sort of goal or being pushed into some sort of career or journey of some sort, just depending on what house the different planets are falling in. But or it's just like a severe, if you see it in the natal chart, it can be like a severe discomfort that the individuals experience on a day-to-day basis. So it's like pushing them towards achieving some certain goal, whether they want to do it or not. It's kind of like, you're going to do this, you're going to go in this direction, whether you like it or not, kicking or screaming. It's cool because it can push you to do good things, but it's one of those things that you generally have very little control over, because the nature of the inconjunct aspect, and there's one planet making two inconjunct aspects, it's such an uncomfortable energy that it forces action. So you want to look at what type of chart this energy is manifesting itself in. So if it's in a natal chart, it's going to be like a lifelong push towards something, towards emphasizing one particular area of life. You look at the apex planet, and you look at what house it's falling in, and that's the direction you're supposed to go. And then the two planets at the bottom are pushing you to move in that direction. If you find it in a composite chart between two individuals, it's a purpose the relationship is going to push the both of you towards fulfilling. It's almost like it functions similarly towards the North Node in a composite chart, but it can generate a little bit of tension between the two individuals, but it's generally helpful. If you find it in a progress chart, you're going to be looking at somebody who's temporarily being jarringly forced to, recognize the terms of some lesson that involves these energies that may not have been present in the natal chart to begin with, but they're popping up now. So you're going to have to learn. When you're looking at solar returns, and that's actually interesting, that is one of the instances where I would generally only really be worried about a Yod aspect pattern showing up if there is an angle involved, especially if it's two planets forming the base being pointed towards the ascendant or towards the midhaven. That's definitely going to be a push in that particular frame of time, because a solar return, lasts for pretty much roughly a year, towards that area of life. And then on top of that, you find out what degree and sign the angle falls at in the solar return, and then you transpose that over to the natal chart, and you find out what house in the natal chart that falls into, so that can give you a really good idea of what area of life you're going to be pushed towards. Like, for instance, in my solar return this year, I have Pluto and Jupiter forming a perfect sextile and forming the two in conjunct aspects towards the midhaven, which has to do with the career. So that's had a very, very interesting effect on my year this year, but it's very, very apparent. So Yod aspect patterns are nothing to really sneer at. They're very, very, very intense energies. A lot of members of the Nazi Party during World War II, they had Yod aspect patterns in their chart. Many of them. I think Hermann Göring was one notable one, but that's another video entirely. Also, there are different aspects there's different versions of Yods. Like, if there's the two planets forming two planets forming the sextile at the bottom, and then there is a third planet at the bottom forming a perfect semi-sextile to both of those planets forming the sextile aspect at the bottom. Well, that planet forming the semi-sextile to both of them is going to really, really help support pushing off the Yod. On top of that, it's going to be forming a semi-sextile at the bottom, and then it's going to be making an opposition to the apex planet as well, further strengthening the Yod. When you also look at Yods, you're looking you always want to pay attention to transits when it comes to a Yod, because the energies of those three planets, or four, are linked up so strongly. A transit coming by in any of the charts, the composite, the progressed, the solar return, the natal chart, any planet hitting those 4 points is going to, in a sense, kick off the energies of the Yod. It's going to trigger one of the planets, that planet's going to trigger the energies of the other planet, and then an event's going to occur that's going to begin really pushing you towards fulfilling the aim of that aspect pattern. Like, I believe, for instance, Albert Einstein, there we go, even better. Albert Einstein had a Yod in his chart pointing towards Uranus. And I believe Uranus was making an opposition to the moon at the other end of the Yod. And on the day that he sent the letter to Franklin Roosevelt, FDR. The day that Albert Einstein sent the letter to FDR, warning him about the Germans' plans to develop their own nuclear weapon, and urging the U.S. government to invest in their own nuclear project, the Manhattan Project. Transit Jupiter was forming an exact conjunction to the planet at the very bottom of the Yod, in effect setting the whole thing off on the exact day that he sent that letter to the President of the United States. So you always want to pay attention to that, because transits, sometimes the energy of the Yod can lie dormant, and then something will happen and it'll just kick off, and then you're being pushed towards your future, your goal, your purpose, in a sense. So hope this was helpful. I do offer consultations, just feel free to get a hold of me, and feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm building up more and more every single day, and I love putting out new content for y'all guys. So until next time.